This is a quote from I believe she's a French novelist, and this is very famous, so you've probably heard it before at some point. She said, "Money may not buy happiness, but I'd rather cry in a Jaguar." Hey guys, welcome back to Life Up Education TV. Today is another episode of ASK Natsune Show, and today we also have a guest and friend, Adam, right here. Welcome.
Thank you.
So it's gonna be, I don't know if you've watched any of my Ask Natsune Show episode. I also push out on my social, so maybe you saw like a clip of it or something. But basically this is a show where we pick up some tweets from Twitters, and then we're gonna make a comment on some tweets. And today, because this is a special episode, I actually went out of the Twitter to pick up some quotes that I wanted to discuss with you. So the first one goes, this is a quote from I believe she's a French novelist, and this is very famous, so you probably heard it before at some point. She said, "Money may not buy happiness, but I'd rather cry in a Jaguar." Right. So this was actually coming from a French novelist, playwright, and screenwriter, and she was born in 1935, and then she died in the 2000s. So let's start from what you think about this, or should I start from what I think about this? Do you want me to repeat the quote?
Yeah, repeat it one more time.
Okay, so she said, "Money may not buy happiness, but I'd rather cry in a Jaguar." Or people say that. Have you heard of it? Like I'd rather cry.
I hear a lot like money doesn't buy happiness. I get that. And there's so many things that you can kind of tie into that. Yeah, it might not buy happiness, but it's nice to have when, the bills come around every month so you can keep the roof over your head. And like, I'm a big eater. So, I like to eat. So you need money to do that. I agree with the first part of that. Money doesn't necessarily buy happiness. You can have all the money in the world, and I've seen and know a lot of people who are millionaires and they're miserable. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like you go out, you get everything that you want, but on the inside they're just not. They're missing something, or they feel like they're. And I've met people with no money at all, and they're some of the happiest people in the world. So I look at I anytime I hear a quote that starts with "money can't buy you happiness" or "might not buy you happiness," sure, but it's really nice to have, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with it.
Right, and I like there, yeah, definitely. I think that there's a truth in that. Like, I mean, when we talk about even the Maslow's like hierarchy chart, right? Like, it comes the bottom, very at the bottom is like your literal like needs for the food, survival needs, right? Like it makes sense. And then as you go toward the top of the pyramid, it becomes like self-esteem and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense, but I don't know, like it could send out the wrong message. I think a lot of people kind of use it in a wrong, well, I wouldn't say wrong way, but not so healthy way, Like I get it. I understand it. Like I understand money is a nice thing to have, but I think I wanted to bring this out because it was kind of like misleading. Maybe it could be kind of misleading to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. And people use it in a misleading way. And I think another thing I wanted to point out about this is the context of where, what kind of era that is that we live today versus like, years ago. Well, this person, when she was younger, okay, she was born, when was this again? She was born in 1935. So, which means that like she's a generation ago, like she's a person from generation ago, and it just made sense for her to choose the stability. Like, I mean, the corporate life was the luxury, right? Like that was the ideal. But I think economy changes, and then our status change, and we have the literally the luxury to pursue whatever we want and still have the capability to make doable money, and that should count itself. Like if these people from that time, they didn't have that luxury, right? Like bringing food on the table was the first priority for them. But like I said, the Maslow's thing, right? Like we are at the economy of a time where our need of happiness, like it moved from here to up here.
Right.
We're living in a more sophisticated economy, so
Right.
it's practical that we can have our own desire. Like the time is different. So I would say that to be in the um, in con- in the context, right?
Right.
But
Yep.
so basically, yeah, my point is like um, I just wanted to bring attention to this kind of quote because I thought there's a possibility of this kind of quote really scaring people off from like, going after the dream. So
Right. No, that's a good one.
yeah. And also, sorry, let's talk about entitled kids, or like kids who were born with a lot of money, because one of the thing that not necessarily triggered me, but I recognized this quote because actually when I was scrolling down TikTok, there was this boy. I guess apparently he looked like someone who come from very affluent family or something.
Right.
So he adopted a lot of luxurious lifestyle. He has like a Gucci bag, like he has this lifestyle.
Right.
And then he was saying that because people were envious of him, of whatever he had, right? Like people were shitting on him and be like, oh, this, like, look at this rich boy, like he doesn't know shit, like blah blah blah.
Right.
Like, I mean, there's a practicality both. And then basically his answer was this,
Yeah.
like I still have more than you do, kind of.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah.
think of it?
So when I see, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's,
You got the wheels turning because there's so many. I'm very much a person like don't judge a book by its cover,
mm-hmm.
kind of a thing. And it's you do have those where there are kids out there that are fortunate to be born into a lot of money,
Right.
and that doesn't necessarily make them bad people, and it doesn't necessarily but it doesn't necessarily make them good people either.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those where it's like that's a really hard one, and I'm it's hard because it's like just with my personality, it's like a person can have a lot of money and you look at it and you judge the book by a cover, like that's a rich kid, silver spoon in his whatever, blah blah blah, he gets whatever, he just spoiled. That's where I was looking for. Spoiled rotten.
Mm-hmm.
Has the attitude to go with it, like I get what I want, I don't have to play by the rules, whatever, fuck off, and then you have the other then you have the other ones that might have that, but they work for it, and you just don't know unless you talk to them. I can't stand when I see a kid or somebody that was born into money and then has the attitude like whatever, I could do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're gonna get punched in the throat too. Like, have some humility and
Right.
don't be a douchebag.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I definitely agree. And I think, it's like, it's also like not, it's sad. Like it's a sad place. Like it's like a, how do you say, it could be also, oh shit, I'm blanking.
well, let me interject something real quick. I think a
Yeah.
lot of that has to do with parenting and how the parenting is raised. And if you're raising your kid to be like that, then you deserve to get punched in the throat as well.
I think another thing is like not being able to appreciate real thing is part the real problem here too. Like it's not about so much about like how stink their attitude is, or not none of nothing like that. It's more about them, like their life. Like
Right.
by them not having that opportunity to really appreciate the real thing, it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with their life. Like
Right.
it's also maybe parents is thinking that it's good to protect my kids, giving them money and blah blah blah, like, but you're essentially creating this infrastructure for your kids to not be able to have the ultimate happiness in life because these kids can't appreciate the real thing, and that's not necessarily like that's not the way to go. So I guess
Right.
that's what I wanted to say. Okay,
Yeah.
so the next one, it's kind of funny because this made me think of another I guess another quote I resonate with a lot, and it kind of has to do with kids this time. But there's a saying in Japanese. We say "Yoi ko ni wa kawaii ko ni wa tabi o saseyo." So that's like a Japanese saying. But I searched for the translation for it, the direct English translation, and it says, "Spare the road and spoil the kid." Do you have that saying?
I have not heard that one.
Okay, so basically, this is to say, if you love your children, send them out into the world. Like that's a one saying that we
Yeah.
have in Japanese. What do you think of this?
Well, so I think my translation of that would be, once you're 18, here's an apple and a roadmap. Good luck to you.
Mm,
Kind of thing. And that's here it's when the child turns 18, they're usually, graduating high school, getting ready to go to college, and or
mm.
off into the world of their own. And for me, I was very much like my son turns 18 next month, and it's,
Oh,
he
congratulations.
thank you. He's a senior in high school. He's graduating in May, and he's going off to college and whatnot. I said, you only got a couple months. I said, and then it's going to be like, foot to ass out the door. Good luck to you. I'm here if you got questions, give me a call. Otherwise, go figure it out. Go live life. Because for me, it was like, I gave my son everything that I could. I was a single parent for many, many, many years. And it was, I wanted to raise him I wanted him to have nice things and stuff like that. But at the same time, it was, if you want something, you got to earn it. So it was like, and it started off small, like do the dishes, take the trash out, whatever. Then it was like, you got to continue to get good grades, and you can't be a bad person. No fighting at school or this and that. So there was ground rules. And I think, and in this long answer, based on what you just said, was I did that because you want to send them off into the world. So when it's time for him to go off, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about him because I know we've built that solid foundation
Mhm,
to where he can go off and now create his own memories, create his own life, and do the things that he wants to do, and
mhm,
stuff like that. And now as a parent, I just get to kind of sit back on the sideline. Here all these years, you're kind of like I'll relate this to to sports. I
mhm,
was the coach. You coached him, right? And then he goes off, and and now I get to sit back and just kind of be a spectator and
mhm.
watch him grow from there. So that's
Right.
kind of how I look at that.
No, I love that. You're focusing on the building a true skill, right? You're focusing
Yeah.
on giving him the real opportunity for him to actually grow on like their true skill. And I think given that, let's change a little bit of a context here. Like, so when we apply very same thing that we just talked about in um, non like children parents dynamic,
Right.
but let's say like people come to you crying and saying, oh, like life is too hard, I can't keep persevere, like this is too hard, I can't do this, right? Like when people come to that, like I think the same thing can be said about this, right? Like rather than, so let's say people come to you, right? Like you're the advisory position, like how do you relate to this quote or everything that you said in that
All
situation?
right. So if let's use the two of us as an example,
Yeah.
okay? If you came to me and says, Adam, I'm having a hard time, life is tough, blah blah blah. I'm just gonna sit here. Okay. And then I'll ask you, how do you want me to answer this? I can give you two answers. I'll give you either the tough love answer, or I can play into your, oh, this is going to sound really bad. I can play into your self-absorbed pity party and just be like, oh, it's, you'll be fine.
Mhm.
And usually what happens is people want me to be honest with them. And I'm just a straight shooter, no BS kind of guy. And for me, I'd just be like, listen, everybody goes through stuff.
Yeah.
You woke up this morning, start picking things like you woke up this morning. So you're alive. So you got something to be grateful for. You're breathing. You ate, you drank coffee this morning. You did whatever your morning routine is. Life isn't that bad. Suck it up, buttercup. Pull your pants up and let's stop bitching about stuff like it. You're just having let's recognize it for what it is. You just had a bad day. Maybe you're having a bad week. Shit, you're human. Everybody has that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, what do we need? What can I do for you today to help you this little hump? So tomorrow when you wake up, you can, okay, wipe your eyes and let's get on with whatever it is that you need to accomplish for the day. That's me. Doesn't always work for everybody, but at least I'm being straight with you.
Right. And I mean, I think that's the whole premise of like why such a quote exists, right? I think there also in the history in Japan, someone somewhere recognized that like that fundamentally works. And actually, let's talk about, so okay, I told you that I watched a crazy amount of the Criminal Minds the last few days. And which doesn't happen with me that often, right? Like I'm usually super obsessed with my like working and everything like that. So I don't necessarily do that. But I had a marathon going on and I went a little bit crazy there. And I literally watched like, I don't know, 15 episodes like in 2 days or something like that. So it was like really, and have you watched Criminal Minds?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're like super sick,
yeah, you should
right?
kind of like, oh.
Yeah, it's like, oh, it literally haunts you at night when you try to sleep. And then imagine you watch like 7 episodes one day, like, it's gonna haunt you good, like shit. But it's not like ghost scary. It was more like, oh shit, like my mind is fucking.
Yeah. I was like, I'm not sleeping for a week. Yeah.
Really, like you're like shaking, like you can't trust people anymore. But the thing is like, one thing I noticed, it's kind of connected to what we just talked about like people coming to you crying, right? Like they're hurting.
Right.
And then how you are reacting to it. And then Criminal Mind, like one thing I noticed is whenever the FBI arrive at the crime scene, and then when the murder or someone who's like doing the damage, it's still there. Like usually there's this like negotiation phase or conversation and be like, drop the gun, like, that kind of conversation. And usually what FBI does is basically starting the conversation with the person who's holding the gun, and then be like, look, it's not your fault, like, because usually these crimes are very personal against the criminal, and then the whoever is hold it as a hostage. Like, the FBI would say, I know this person did this to you, and you're a victim. You're the victim in this picture. I understand you. Like, I have empathy for why you came to this point, even, right? Like, that's like the FBI trained, like government trained, I guess, properly done way of negotiation here, right? And I don't know, like the whole, when I was watching that the whole time, I don't know, I keep coming back to like I don't know, I just couldn't help thinking like why these people are so evil. I mean, just to give you a little bit more context and add more emotion here, can I tell you one quick thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so there was this episode. I mean, there's so many episodes that was crazy. Like people would, cut their arms, cut their legs. They operate and then attach different parts of body in a different places. Like that's so fucked up. There's another case where this guy kidnapped girls for 15 years, 20 years, and keep holding them hostage. Like, and then, you know, I just can't understand how these people are come to this place. And then I remembered one question that was asked when I was in another podcast, which was very philosophical podcast, and he asked me if I believe that there's anyone who are born to this world evil, like if sin is created after you're born, or is it possible for someone to be born evil? What do you think of this? And then I'm going to tell you why I'm bringing this conversation in the order that I did later after I hear your answer.
All right. So so the question you asked me, do I think people can be born into this world evil? Is that the question?
Yeah. Like, why do they have to become the killer who can do such a horrible thing to other people?
I don't, man, I've never, this is a great question. I've never really looked at it that in depth before, but I would say with my own personal beliefs, I grew up going to church and stuff like that. I would say that that's probably something taught. I don't think somebody's going to be born into this world like that's the spawn of the devil right there. That was just born like that kid's going to be evil or whatever. I think there's an innocence to everybody when they come into this world. I think as they grow, it's this whatever your surrounding environment is, whether it's the people around you where you grew up or wherever, and then that all takes, you know, effect eventually. So no, I don't. My own personal belief, I don't think that you're just going to be born into this world evil. I think a lot of that is taught.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Someone said about where was it? So there's a part of the Europe where there's no, like, very low in prostitution because the country take care of it. Like the woman can work, and then money is provided for the whole nation to like sufficiently live. And then so there's less in the, you know, crime rate, there's less in the prostitution. So like you said, I think it's also the system, right? Like it's sometimes out of the necessity context of the society. Like I completely agree. And so one thing I noticed when I watch that, I'm speaking as if this is like a true cases, right? But I'm sure that these are some of the true cases. I mean, how the hell else would these writers come up with this story? Like they must have like watched some, you know, historical crimes that happen or something like that, right? So you know what, something that was very common was like people were, you know, basically these drama was exactly the opposite of what I usually preach, which is don't dwell, let it go of pain, move forward, produce. Like that's my whole theme, the message that I promote. And it's the completely opposite, 180-degree opposite of that is what looks like basically. And then usually it happens, like you said, because of the context, because of what happened. Like they were abused by parents or, you know, something crazy. And then that's how they turn into that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that too. Like, I guess, no one is evil. Like people usually have a reason to be toxic, right? How can we avoid that? Then I always have to come back to the importance of mindset, the building the mindset. But it is very heavy topic to talk about it.
It really is, because there's so many directions you could take this conversation, right? And probably more so than what we have time for today. But I think, you know, it's how can you avoid it? You got to look at it like this. It's like there's good and evil in the world, right? And it's kind of like I hate to say this, but it's kind of like a checks and balance system. You know what I mean? You're gonna have some evil, but let's focus on that. How do how do you avoid that? Well, you ensure that is it 100% avoidable? It depends on the person, right? I'm going to use myself and some of my parenting stuff as an example. There are certain areas that, like, when my son was getting ready to start high school, there were certain schools I did not want him to go to. So we moved completely, sold the house, moved him in. We had the opportunity to go to a private school. There was another school we were looking at, but the private school we just had that opportunity and we made it happen. And I knew that was the right decision because the situation that we were in prior to that, it was kind of a bad area, and the surrounding area, you see what the kids were getting in trouble, whether they were breaking the law, this, that, and the other thing. And I don't blame them. That was just their situation that they were in. So how do we interpret that, moving forward with these criminals and murderers, and how do you avoid that? I don't know.
I mean, like, it's just too heavy topic to talk about here. But I guess my point was like, just to kind of like touch on the mindset part, like how important that is. And I guess one of the thing I noticed, like, I just keep coming back because the topic was so heavy, like, because this drama was just like literally fucking my mind up. I think one thing that I kept coming back was like, regardless of the system, regardless of what's right or what's wrong, I think it's about the empathy. It's about, like, I would never do that, not because something is wrong, not because something is right, because, like, I just don't want to hurt anyone. Like, I don't.
You're right. It comes down to the individual, and you have to, whether these people are taught to, like, oh, I don't want to be like this. Well, if you don't want to be like this, then start changing your mindset and taking the steps to move in that direction to where, and you can have empathy for somebody to an extent, when it's these kinds of situations, because, like, this is fucking heavy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So, but you can have some empathy towards that person, but at the same time, it goes back on the person. Like, that's a mindset. You got to want to change. You got to want to do good, and you got to, and you can. Everybody has we all have the capabilities of doing it. It's just a matter of flipping the switch and moving in that direction.
Right. So for me, I think the best way is like really teaching everyone hope, if we can. And also up and comers, like kids nowadays, right? Like, really, it just reinforced the idea of how important that is to teach kids empathy. Like, not the way to say like this is wrong or this is right. Like, I mean, let's see, like, when we talk about being right or wrong, there's just so much perspective in it. It's so subjective. Like, one victory of someone can be misery of someone else, right? And then vice versa. So if we dwell on the right, the justice, like the right and wrong, which definitely the system should be there to punish someone, right? Like, if you break the law, like, it should be there. But at the same degree, like, I think what's more important is, like, I'm very ideological, I think, saying this, but I want to teach everyone the empathy. Well, not even teaching, like, I want to create the environment where people feel that. People are able to feel empathy. Like, people are able to learn what love is, like what that means to not want to hurt other people. And I think it's a lack of love. Like, you're hurting, like you're lacking of empathy yourself, so you don't know how to handle it, right? Like, so I think that's where I kept coming back. The world peace happens because lack of empathy, ego as in, like, your need, you need to satisfy your need. You're ignoring us together, right? So that's kind of my conclusion there from Criminal Mind, was to say, like, let's deploy empathy, in order for us to, even by small percentage, by us spreading the empathy, we can create the world of peace, the world of more love, and less of crime, less of like a cold,
Right.
like harmful experience.
I love that idea, and I think you're right on point with that. I mean, if we brought that into, like, schools, public school systems, and had classes for like families and stuff like that, this is how you teach empathy and to your kids, and on a mass scale. I think that's something that could spread out, and that would be nice to see, definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree. How are you feeling, Adam, right now?
I feel very good. That last one with the whole
that's so heavy. I just had to, like,
such a deep one. Like, when we were talking about it offline, I'm just like, oh man, this could go anywhere. That's definitely. We may have to revisit that one on a later episode as well, because I think there's so much that you can kind of dissect with that. But I think those are all great things, and I love the fact that you want to spread the empathy and teach that. And the world, especially I think 2020, this year alone, right. I think this is something that's definitely needed. I think people need to kind of set egos aside, and if people could have empathy, or more importantly, just listen to other people and try to understand somebody else, I think you would see that the world would be a much better place. I mean, the world, don't get me wrong, the world, we go through stuff and whatnot, and you kind of, but have the mindset that you're going to wake up in the morning. When I wake up in the morning, I put a smile on my face. Before I even get out of bed, I put a smile on my face, because I want to start the day. I want to start. I know it sounds kind of like you're old and you're getting out of bed and smile. I'm smiling because I woke up this morning, first off. Okay. Because it could have went the other way, So I smile, and when my feet hit the floor, I say thank you, because I'm going to start the day off in a positive way. Now, the rest of the day, whatever, but I started the day off positive, and I can kind of keep that. I try to keep that momentum going. So I guess I say all of that for your viewers and listeners that watch and listen to this later on, is you have a lot to be thankful for, especially if you're watching us right now. So you're welcome. No, I'm just kidding. But just be grateful. Yeah, right.
Right. No, that's beautiful. But yeah, I know it was very heavy topic, but first I had like 3 different reasons I brought it up. The first reason was because I just watched it and it was just like scarring me in some undescribable way. So I just had to get it out, and I had to extract some sort of learning from it in a positive way, not the negative.
Right. Yep.
So that's the first reason. The second reason is like it was so raw and real story, and it sometimes it also takes timing too. Like some you can be told same story, but you just don't extract any more concept out of it. But sometimes you hear the same concept from a different story, and somehow it comes more suiting to you.
Circle, yep.
Right? Like, so sometimes it takes timing, and it just felt right for me because it just happened in a very recently, and I could authentically feel the need of addressing the story and really like really talking about literally this is it. This is the importance of having empathy, right? Like, and finally, again, yeah, it's just reinforcement. Like it's just how, like, this is how much it is important. Like it's not about the Lara talk. It's not about like, yeah, let's be happy, let's be positive, let's look at the actual alternative shit, like, the actual like super bad shit happens, and right. So there we go. So that being said, that was it. That was the end of the story today. Adam, before I let you go, can you tell us where people can find you?
Sure. You can find us on all social media platforms. We're on the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all at Heroes Media GRP. And you can also check out our website at heroesmediagroup.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Adam.